Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 2 of Meet the Prescott. I am your host, Ian Prescott. We got a plethora of things going on today once again. This week's theme is about the front office and team allegiance. Last week we talked about player agency, so this is kind of the other side of it. Today I have a good friend of mine, and also former student at the University of Arizona, now working out in Las Vegas, or as everybody likes to call it with their terrible joke, Lost Wages, which I'm sure he's never heard before. He's also a fellow Eagles fan, which is depressing as it sounds. Danny Kenneth, what's going on, Danny?
Hey man, how's it going? Great to be here. Can't wait.
Yeah. So we got a whole bunch of different topics that we want to get to today, but I think the first thing that's on everyone's mind who spent time watching the pay-per-view for the UFC fight that was this past week, former WWE superstar, I believe at one point was the heavyweight champion of the world, CM Punk, got into the ring in a UFC fight and basically got dummied around for less than a whole. It wasn't even a whole like I'm trying to think of what I want to keep calling it a period, but it's not a period. A whole round. There we go.
Yeah.
He just got dummied for a round, and I think the question was: is it better to just get knocked out in one punch, or to have somebody just dominate you for like 3 minutes at a time?
So to start, I mean the little kid, the old wrestling fan in me wanted CM Punk to win that fight so bad. Especially after watching the Evolution of Punk documentary that the UFC put out. It gave a new perspective. And like as big of a Punk fan as I was going into that fight, um, it really gave a new perspective to me on, he wasn't just trying to go into the UFC because he's a big name. Like he was training with these guys and legit putting in, all the work that was asked of him and that he needed to put in, including after his sparring matches, like mopping the mats that he just fought on. Like he wasn't using his name to get there. So like I've had a newfound respect for him going into the fight. Um, Going back to the question, is it better to get knocked out rather than just choked out for, 2 minutes or however long it was? Um, I don't know. I'd almost want it to be just like knocked out just immediately. It's like, all right, well, they caught him with a punch. Nothing you can do about that. Rather than, nope, he had his back for the entire fight. I mean, it lasted longer than I expected because he got out of what, like two, maybe three rear naked chokes before he finally
Right.
got submitted.
Yep.
So he actually lasted a lot longer than Mickey Gall said he was going to, and a lot longer than people expected, even though it was just pretty much a man beating up a child, experience wise.
Right. And I think when you look at it, like there's definitely a negative to just getting knocked out. Like I think the most positive thing that could have came out of this, aside from a win, is if he had pulled an Anderson Silva and tried to throw a kick and his leg just wrapped around the other guy's leg and was just broken. And he'd be like, "Hey, look at that, man! It's not even my fault. Like I definitely I lost the match, quote unquote." But I mean, I think getting jumped on and everything like that probably, it's disheartening, I think, at the very least. And he seems pretty humble in it. And obviously Brock Lesnar was in a little bit of a different class because he did fare really well in his fights that he did do in the UFC, and was able to bounce back and forth between UFC and the WWE and all that other kind of stuff. But really, when you think about it, the UFC has really not had any drawing power aside from the two WWE stars that came in between Brock Lesnar and CM Punk. And then aside from that, nobody really watches unless Ronda Rousey or Conor McGregor's fighting. Like that was the only thing. And it's like this whole what if factor. you know, he succeed, won't he succeed kind of thing, that I really think um, kind of pushed Dana White to even give him an opportunity as opposed to telling him to go to Strike Force or, whatever flavor of the week defunct league there is now anyway. So that's all pretty interesting to think about. And I think this also kind of goes into that situation. Like, is there such thing as, bad press? Like, is there such thing as like a bad look when you're still in the spotlight? I don't know what your thoughts might be on that.
Yeah, I think if the press or if the expectations were reversed, it would be um, harmful, I guess, for Punk. But like going into the fight, there wasn't really anybody who truly thought Punk was going to win. Um,
Right.
like if it was like Brock Lesnar going against Mickey Gall, where it just it wouldn't happen because of the weight classes, but for argument's sake, if it was like such a heavy favorite, and it was a different scenario for Lesnar, he won an NCAA title in college, like he wasn't, he's this big dude that can punch, but he can also go to the ground and wrestle, like he was very good. Um, if the expectations were reversed to where Punk was a heavy favorite to win and got choked out in just over a minute, then it'd be
Right.
like it would raise the question. Okay, was this really a good thing to do?
Yeah, I think this is also kind of a idea where you look at it and you think to yourself like, okay, when you see people, try and do like two sport athlete kind of thing, like we give Michael Jordan a lot of stuff about becoming a baseball player, not necessarily being that successful, even though he had like a relatively, you know, not like it wasn't a stellar baseball career, but for any minor leaguer, it was worthwhile. I mean, it's
Yeah,
about the same as anybody who would be riding the bus in Double A anyway.
yeah. We don't talk about, oh, Michael Jordan went to the MLB and only he hit a buck 18 or something. Like it wasn't a complete failure. He did all right. All things considered.
Right. So how do you feel about this Tebow thing? Is this just another one of these kind of situations waiting to happen, where if Tebow goes up and he strikes out his first six times at bat, or his first error, all of a sudden, is it a failure, or do you think you're going to see a lot of stuff that you get now? A lot of people are talking about CM Punk in a positive way, saying like, oh, like at least he had the guts to get out there and get on the mat and try it.
Yeah, like with Tebow, he was signed to what, the Mets Double A, I think,
Yeah.
and he actually might be coming to Las Vegas to play for the
Oh
51s.
yes.
Um,
Yes.
so I would definitely go out for dollar beer night on a Thursday and watch him try to hit a yabo.
Take some cuts.
Yeah. Um, you know, on one side of it, yeah, I respect the hell out of him for being like, hey, this is what I want to do now. So, and I'm gonna, he's not out here, just saying, hey, sign me to, a major league deal. Give me 100 million over 5 years. Like that's what I want. He knows he's unproven at a professional level in baseball. So, he's out there with just videos of him just taking cuts, just playing. And he's like, hey, this is me. What do you want to do? You want to sign me? Sign me. If you don't, I'm gonna keep doing my thing. Even though I never thought he was gonna succeed as a quarterback in the NFL, I give him respect and props, because everyone was saying you shouldn't be a quarterback, you should be a tight end, a fullback, maybe even like a receiver four or something, something down in the depth chart. But he's like, no, I want to be a quarterback, and if I don't do that, I'm gonna go do something else, that I want to do. So he doesn't
Right.
compromise on what he wants. Um, and if he goes up and strikes out first time, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of people there, just giving him hell and be like, see, this is why we don't do things like this. There's only one Bo Jackson. Uh,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. Deion
pe-
Sanders, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like people need to stop doing this. But I mean, is one at bat really like that? Um, Obviously, the sample size is far too small. You
Right.
know, he could start off, really slow because he just hasn't played at that level before. It's not.
Right.
It may not necessarily be indicative of his ability to actually succeed. So
Right. I think we also have this weird kind of obsession with athletes and seeing them not do well at things because they're like supposed to be like this pinnacle of what we're all aspiring to be, getting paid to do something that we enjoy as a hobby, so on and so forth. But I think when it comes down to Tebow, he's such a sideshow at this point. Like I remember you were hearing even at one point the CFL was trying to sign him. He's like, no, I'm not going to sign in the CFL because, like I guess issues with pride and stuff like that. And even though for the most part, we can pretty much prove statistically that he's not a capable NFL quarterback. But there's this weird thing that we associate with Tebow, and maybe we even tried to associate with CM Punk and other people who are trying to be two-sport athletes. This idea of the underdog, like, is Tim Tebow really an underdog? He's a dude who played at Florida in a big, market for college football.
2 national titles.
Yeah, won 2 national titles. Somehow, failed up into a playoff win for the Broncos.
For the Broncos. What he beat it was the Steelers, wasn't it? Like he beat
somebody. Somebody had no business beating.
Yeah, I think it was the Steelers. I'll have to go back and check. But yeah, like it was an overtime win against the Steelers. Like dude came through in the clutch immediately, and yeah, like for all intents and purposes, he had no business even being in that situation.
Absolutely. I mean, he was drafted in the first round. Like I don't see. You hear a lot about Tim Tebow, the underdog, and I don't understand where that narrative all of a sudden comes from. And it's kind of baffling because in his career, I mean, he completion percentages around like below 50 and so on and so forth. But, it was this kind of phenomena that second year that he had come in. And I think there's a lot of people. Yeah. So he beat the Steelers 29-23 in overtime. Mm-hmm. He basically, he threw 10 completions, 316 yards, and then 2 touchdowns. And one of those completions was for 80 yards. But he had a pretty high QBR, it was a 97.2. And then in the next game, he came in against New England and basically threw 9 for 12 and had a QBR of 29.3. Like, so obviously, if you don't even follow football, like a 29.3 in anything is not very good. but I think that it's strange that he had this inkling that, like, okay, I'm not going to play fullback, I'm not going to play wide receiver. I'm gonna stick with the quarterback scenario. When you really think about it, how many high school quarterbacks that come into college end up getting forced into a position? What was it, like Eric Crouch was like the last person I could think of in the NFL who was a quarterback in college that ended up getting switched to a wide receiver.
Well, Terrell Pryor was a quarterback at Ohio State, and now he's a wide receiver. I think he plays for the Browns. He was about the only receiver that did anything against the Eagles last week.
Yep. The 1-0 NFC East leading Eagles.
Yeah,
so yeah, I think it's kind of interesting, the narratives that we attach, and wasn't Antoine Randall L also another player that was like that? It was a quarterback, a quarterback for a little bit, and then got switched out to the wide receiver position. It's interesting front office decisions where, like, obviously there's athleticism in certain places. Like, you even look at like this 12 gauge packet that's going on in Texas right now that ended up working against Notre Dame in week 1. That quarterback is not going to get the opportunity at any level beyond college, I think, to throw the ball. And it's a weird idea to take a scout, and send them to a college game, send him to wherever, and say, this guy is good, but we definitely should try him somewhere that he is not being scouted at currently. That's just a strange frame of thinking, at least in
Yeah,
my
it's
mind.
yeah, no, I agree because essentially like you're putting more stock in his athletic ability than you are like game film because there is no, if we want to try him at fullback, yeah, him running the ball is about, on a QB sneak, which everybody, when he comes into the game, everybody knows it's going to him.
Right.
Like that's the only footage you have of him even close to something at that position. If they wanted to transition him from a quarterback to a wide receiver, even more so they're banking into more his athletic abilities more so than game tape because there just isn't footage of him catching a ball. You're
Hmm.
saying, all right, I like this kid as an athlete. I think he would fit here, and it's kind of taking a chance, a really big chance.
Right.
So yeah,
Right. I
I
think.
agree. I don't think he's going to get that big of a shot at, or maybe any shot at the next level. Um, and I feel like a lot of quarterbacks with that style in college football, like they're great. You hear it a lot. They're great college football quarterbacks, but not NFL quarterbacks because the style of play is too different in my opinion. Defenses are just way too smart and way too good um, for that level of play or that style of play to translate well.
Yeah, and it's interesting because once quarterbacks get to the NFL level, you'll never see an option like you'll see read options, obviously, like oh we're not going to throw the ball now, we're actually going to hand it off, but you're never going to see like the option as like the college option running around the outside, someone pitching it back, that kind of thing ever again. Like as soon as people get to, like and I remember sitting down and having some conversations with people like back when Michael Vick was just first coming into the league. They're like, oh, they should like run an option with him, like absolutely to the outside. It's like, no, somebody will kill him. That man will die.
Yeah,
It's the first time that somebody holds onto the ball and is looking for a lateral, someone's gonna murder that. Like Von Miller is
yeah,
gonna kill somebody. Like,
yeah,
and, and that option goes away for a lot of these players coming out of college, going into the NFL, and I think that's why you also see people like Pryor and the quarterback that's at Texas. His name's Tyrone Swoops, who scored 3 rushing touchdowns
yeah,
in that game. So yeah, you don't see that continue.
yeah. And the difference in players, like Swoops compared to like a Vic, a Russell Wilson, a Cam Newton, all these quarterbacks that, you know, they're associated with like a dangerous running game, like they can run the ball. The reason why they're so dangerous at running the ball, like outside of athletic ability, is because they're also a huge threat to throw the ball. Like they're dual threat. They can throw the ball. You know, Swoops isn't going to get a chance to throw the ball at Texas. They got Bouchel for that. So
Right. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's kind of get into our major topics for the night. I think that one of the things that came up, so I had posted on a Twitter not too long ago, didn't really get a lot of or too much feedback about it, but one that had been brought up essentially was, what would it take for you to disavow a sport or a sports team, just straight up? And somebody brought up the idea of the Red Sox in the '70s with the clubhouse manager who had been charged with some sexual misconduct back in the, I want to say, probably sometime in the '80s, maybe early '90s, in which that happened. What do you think would cause? What do you what kind of examples do you think there are out there, or maybe even you yourself as a fan, would take you to disavow an entire sport or sports team just straight out?
I think this gets trickier as you go up the ladder.
Yes.
It's easier for me to disavow a player. If we're going down to a player level,
Yep.
um, it's harder for me to disavow a team, and it's even harder for me to disavow an entire sport. But like some examples. you know, the Joe Pa situation at Penn State. You know,
Right.
I'm not a fan of Penn State to begin with. Um, but I could absolutely see people disavowing that team. But at the same time, if none, because I have to ask myself this question, if none of the people that were involved in the Joe Pa situation are associated with the team, is it fair to the players and the staff that are associated and on the team? Is it fair to them that they no longer have your fandom because of things that they had no control over? So
Right.
it,
Yeah,
it's
I think that's a good point.
I think it's
Uh,
it's it's justified either way, uh, but definitely tricky. There's a lot of gray area.
right. I think so. I think one of the better situation, or not better, but one of the better examples I can think of. Obviously, there was some stirring up that had to do with uh, the boycott NFL hashtag that it came out this past week because people were kneeling or putting up a fist during the national anthem this during 9/11 this past weekend, this Sunday or this past Sunday for that matter, and you saw a lot of people who were having some outrage, and I think a lot of that is obviously faux outrage, where you're not going to have people that are actually doing any kind of boycotting, any kind of actual action towards it. I think there's a lot of people trying to be the moral authority when it comes up to stuff like this. Like the same thing but same thing is true. The NCAA basically, I mean, stuff goes on negatively all the time. There was a lot of sexual misconduct issues that were going on with Boston University and their men's hockey team. There's a story about Jack Parker that I've heard um, that basically when they built Alligance Arena, which is where Boston University's hockey team plays now, just their men's team, Jack Parker, they had built this new beautiful arena for both the men's and the women's hockey team. Jack Parker basically said, "No, I don't want women playing in my rink," and the women still play at Walter Brown Arena, which is a historic arena in Boston, but it's not the nice arena,
It's
and
not by
that's
women's
basically how
choice.
it goes. So it's basically kind of how it goes. But it's 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 so bizarre to think about something along those lines. Somebody who is like a figurehead for an organization like that, essentially decide, we're not going to allow this thing to happen, and like that's at the heart of it. That's a pretty sexist thing to do, and really, in the end, what is that going to accomplish for your program where you're not having two people play in the same place? You can't use Walter Brown for renovation or knock it down or anything like that. And that's kind of how it goes. But I think the NCAA didn't do anything about that, even though we have the restrictions of Title IX and so on and so forth.
Mm.
But as soon as they heard about this Joe Paterno thing, and like rightfully so, there needed to be punishment for it, but they punished the program as opposed to just Paterno, the people who were in charge at the time.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they're losing scholarships for years and years, and they're putting all kinds of hampering on that Penn State program that's not going to have it recover for so long. It's the same thing that happened with the 30 for 30 that was about SMU with the Pony Express.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, where they get the death penalty, and the program's punished for so many years. So all the and that, that's where I think that's where you run into the gray area of, okay, like, do I disavow this team, or like should I feel justified in disavowing this team? Um,
Yeah.
you know, if if you get the death penalty for 25 years or something, and 13 years into the death penalty, nobody on the team had anything to do with whatever scandal caused it. you know is it really fair to the people involved in the organization, now that it's so, like, so far down the line, like so far removed from the actual event? um and the people you really feel for, are the players, especially at a college level. A lot of these kids are coming in, they just want to play, the sport that they've been growing up playing. A lot of like for a lot of them, their biggest dream in life was to play the whatever their favorite collegiate sport is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's where I think that's where you run into the gray areas. Like, okay, I don't support this program, but I support the kids that play for it.
Right.
So I mean, that's where like the gray area comes into effect with me, disavowing a team. A player is far simpler. You've got players like Ray Rice in football.
Yep.
Um, Mike Vick still gets a lot of shit for. I don't know if I can say shit, but I said
You
shit.
can. We're on
All right.
YouTube. Don't worry. You can say shit all you like.
All right. Mike Vick still gets a bunch of shit for his dog fighting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it goes without mentioning, Aaron Hernandez. I think that was easily the most disavowed player and the quickest player to be disavowed
Yep.
in the history of sports ever.
Yeah.
Um, so like it's easier to just go, I still like this team, but I hate this player. And it's I think the Patriots in the Aaron Hernandez situation handled it brilliantly, where the organization would have taken a lot more of a hit than it did if they didn't handle it like they did. They offered, regardless of when you got it, what it looks like, whatever. Like, if you want to return your Aaron Hernandez jersey, we'll give you another one.
Right.
Um,
Right.
they handled that, as best as you could. They said, okay, yeah, he's dead to you, he's dead to us. Like, we're in this together, type of thing. Um,
And that's particularly interesting about the Patriots, considering like they're considered like the evil empire of football. Like
yeah,
there was the Spygate thing that happened, there was this Deflategate thing that happened, there was the Aaron Hernandez situation that that happened a couple years ago. Like there's so much that's lumped onto that team. Um, some people even hate Tom Brady because he's out here talking with like a Donald Trump sticker on his locker room plate and stuff like that. There's so much that is attached to that team, but people love the Patriots. Like people mostly from Massachusetts and the New England area love the Patriots, but you don't see people walking away from that anytime soon.
yeah, yeah. I think to disavow an entire team and just throw away all support for an entire team, like it would have to, at least to me, it would have to be both at a player and executive level, to where I can't even think of a situation. It would have to be something so out there that I just disagree with, but for some reason, like, players of the team, coaches, upper management, executives, they all support this one thing that I don't disagree, or that I don't agree with, um, because there's two sides of it. The players, and then the rest of the organization. Coaches, management, people like that. And a lot of times you have upper management, do stupid things, but you still support the team because, like, you're not in it for the general manager or the assistant head coach, or the scout of the team. You don't care about the Flyers for their upper management. You know them, and you know their actions and stuff, but when it comes down to it, you know, me with the Penguins, I support the players on the ice.
Right.
That's my ultimate. I have the most experiences with them. I have the most interaction with them. You know, um, Upper management isn't the team, or isn't they're not the people that put me into cardiac arrest and have me on the edge of my seat every season. It's the players.
Right. Yeah, I think there's some smaller, like, so for example, I think a good example of the upper management not really being a part of the team is when you saw Donald Sterling talking to his mistress all out of pocket about her taking pictures with Magic Johnson and other African American men and saying like, you're making me look bad and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, the Clippers were throwing their warm-ups in the middle of the floor and just basically like, yo, Donald, we're not about this life. And then all of a sudden you saw Donald Sterling get quietly shuffled into the, greener pastures kind of thing.
Yeah.
Obviously I think there's definitely a separation, because I can think of like 100 players that people just like, Dante Stallworth, when they like people who even dislike players for leaving town. Like you see people turn their backs on players like that, like once they leave town. Like,
Oh yeah.
and then yeah.
I was gonna say, like, every time a new player signs somewhere new, if it's a big name, all you see on the internet is their jerseys being burned, stepped on,
Yeah.
thrown in the trash. They can, like, people have such an easy time with disavowing players from a team.
I think it's generally it doesn't make a lot of sense either. I mean, yeah, I can't believe that people in Cleveland even let their owner touch that trophy after the way he treated LeBron after he left.
Yeah.
When LeBron left and he wrote that page-long article and put it in the newspaper and basically was like, we don't need this guy, blah, 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 blah. That team doesn't even get close to a championship when obviously beforehand, before he got there, they got closer to a championship. They ended up running to the original big three of the Boston Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
But then you think about all this other nonsense that ended up happening with him coming back, and then everybody's like, "Oh, let's forget about that burnt jersey that I did and all that kind of stuff, and let's forget about this this 500-word treatise that I just wrote in the Cleveland Times or whatever to trash you, and then to just talk about it like everything's fine." Like, LeBron should have dragged that man through the streets after they won. Just absolutely, yeah. But it's crazy. I think the ease in which we can make excuses for one thing and not others is pretty interesting.
Yep, I agree. It's it's almost in some situations, like at an egregious hypocritical level.
So let's see here. What we got up on the docket next. So what is your ideas, or what are your feelings? Obviously, now that you live or now that you're back home in Las Vegas in the Nevada area, there's a lot of buzz for this Las Vegas Desert Golden Silver Black Knights team that's being put based on expansion into the Las Vegas area. What's the buzz like living in a place that's like, just getting an NHL team for the first time, and possibly the Oakland Raiders, correct?
Yep. Before I get onto the hockey side, Raiders or Las Vegas just passed a $750 million public funding. I don't want to call it a bill, but they voted on it, I think just yesterday, and it passed. So that's an entirely different thing, because I know a lot of people feel two types of ways. One about the Raiders coming, and two about it being publicly funded. Yeah, because Las Vegas is essentially paying for a stadium to be built that we still have to pay to get into. So a lot of people are, they're torn, because they're like, yay, NFL team, this is great. Oh no, I don't want to pay for it. Like, the owner should pay for it. The NFL should pay for it. So that's its own thing, but that definite excitement overall about getting, for sure, one, if not two, pro teams after not having one for so long.
Right.
The NHL team, personally, I'm excited about it. More excited about something like that than I've been in quite some time. Because I finally get to, like, I don't have to travel a few hours to see a professional hockey team play.
Right.
You know, or when they do the Frozen Four or like a preseason game here every year. Um,
Right. Right. Because
so
the last year was L.A. and somebody or other,
the Avalanche,
the
they,
Avalanche that were
yeah,
playing in the MGM, I think.
yeah, they come. They seem to come every year, if not every other year. So they're
Right.
here a lot. Um, you know, and yeah, I've gone a few times, and the atmosphere is always great. You know, we packed the building. You know, it's always Kings. You know, it's majority Kings fans, obviously, because LA is so close.
Right.
Um, but uh, you know, last time I went, it went to overtime, went to a shootout. There were a bunch of fights. You know, game ended like 6-5. Like for any casual fan that
That's an
went to the
exciting
game,
game.
yeah, like it's everything that you could have asked for in a hockey game. You know, outside of I don't think there was a hat trick because I definitely would have. I wouldn't care who scored it. I'd throw my hat on the ice.
Right.
Um, but I've run into two types of situations with an NHL team coming. Like anybody that knows anything about sports obviously knows the teams come in, you know, they're excited. I have plenty of people that are reaching out to me because they're like, I'm the biggest hockey fan that they know, and they're like, hey, we got to watch a game. I need to learn hockey. Like, you got to get me caught up to speed. You know, when the team comes, I want to go to the games. I don't want to look stupid. You know, like I never watched hockey before. It's like you got to teach me. You got to teach me. So a lot of people are really excited. Um,
Yeah,
but
I think that that's a yeah. I mean, that's a general thing. I obviously that's what's kind of strange because living in Philadelphia for most of my young life, I never had the opportunity to have the excitement of like, oh, there's something new that's coming to town. I mean, obviously the Eagles have been there forever. Uh, the Sixers, the Phillies, the Flyers. I mean, the friggin' Soul was like the newest team that we had. I guess the MLS team that came to town. The Union was a pretty big deal. But even at that point, the MLS was still, because they were still expanding, was still on the rise, and it wasn't necessarily this big draw to it because there wasn't any huge players that were in it. Obviously, Landon Donovan was playing in over here, but Brian McBride had already left to go to Fulham at that time and stuff like that. So there wasn't really any big name draws. But the expansion draft, especially with the way that the CBA's generated, you could end up having 4 or 5 unbelievable play. Like you could end up having Ben Bishop on your team, who's a Team USA player right now.
mhm.
You could end up having, you know, I'm trying to think of like Rick Nash could end up being on the team if the Rangers don't protect him. All kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah. With the rules in place, you know, I'm telling people right now because you know anybody that doesn't know those specific rules are like, yeah, it's an expansion team. You know, they're not going to be any good because I feel like without being super knowledgeable on the matter, you know, they assume, oh, they're just going to get a bunch of young kids, you know, players that aren't wanted anymore on their teams. Um, you know, and without knowing the situation, I too would think that. But you know, I tell them, I'm like, no, like teams can only protect a certain amount of players. I would not be shocked at all if the team made the playoffs. You know, maybe as like a 7 or 8 seed in their first year, because
Right?
they're
Yeah.
not going to have they're not going to have a Kane, a Crosby, a Stamkos, but they're going to have 4 solid lines, of second to third line players with whatever goalie they end up with. You know, I personally think it's going to be Marc-Andre Fleury,
Oh yeah.
because I see Matt Murray being the future of the Pens, at
I could
least right now.
I could even see somebody like Evander Kane ending up on that team. I like you look back at like the 2000 Minnesota Wild team that came into the league in the expansion draft, and um, you know, essentially there's 3 players that are still from the inaugural season team that are still in the NHL right now, which is Pascal Dupuis, Willie Mitchell, and Marian Gaborik. who are all pretty much at the end of their careers at this point. But, the people who you were getting out of the expansion draft, then you had to split between another team that was coming into the league at the time. Most of the time when you have an expansion team, they have two of them coming at the same time. I mean, they were drafting guys like Wes Walls and like Scott Pellerin and Jim Dowd. Like that, you can't build a team around those kind of guys.
Yeah.
But now you look at like Sportsnet was saying like with Las Vegas's expansion team might end up being Patrick Sharp, Rick Nash, Tyler Bozak, Grigorenko, Matt Molson, Kuhlman, Dustin Brown, James Neal, Jack Johnson, Mark Mathot. Like that's a lot of really pretty good players. Ryan Miller, like that's a lot of good players that could be available.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to preach to people. It's like this team has the potential to be really good their first season, and only build from there. I don't see them, like I said, getting like an absolute superstar, because obviously teams are going to protect them, but they're going to have I feel at least 3 lines of exciting hockey to watch, with the 4th line being the grinded out line.
Yeah, I think
even then it'll have scoring potential, I feel.
Right. I think the biggest thing that comes up with these expansion and relocation, so we're even thinking about teams that get relocated, because there's obviously there's talks in sports. I mean, obviously the LA Rams just got relocated from St. Louis all the way out there. And you were talking about a little bit earlier these ideas about people from locally not wanting to fund these crowds. You just think about like the LA Coliseum and places like that. If you have fans paying for it, and then all of a sudden 20 years later there's not even a team to fill that stadium anymore. There's those issues. There's the issues of people getting pushed out of neighborhoods that come with that. It's similar to the issues that we had in Rio, where we were pushing out people who lived in lower income neighborhoods and everything like that. Like the targets where you see, we want to build public transportation so people can get to these games and everything along those lines. But, even though the big draw is like, hey, we get to build public transportation for this new arena that's coming into effect, that public transportation isn't going to help anybody who doesn't work for that arena, because it's not helping people get to work any faster or get away from work any faster or anything like that. So there's definitely the downside draws from a social perspective.
Yep. Yeah, I lost my train of thought, but the big gripe that people have out here with the Raiders coming, and it being $750 million publicly funded, is Las Vegas has its own issues. We were denied expanding our police force out here. Our education, I think, ranks near the bottom in the nation. It might even be 50th. Like we have all these other issues that $750 million could go to.
Yeah, Nevada's public school system remains dead last in the nation for 3 years straight.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think about, because like when you think Nevada, when you think Las Vegas, at least education-wise, you think schools like, obviously, Bishop Gorman, who's nationally recognized, and a great school to go to. It's like when you have this school that's so far ahead of all the other schools, educationally and athletically, but they're, if anything, they're pulling the average up. Like, right. So imagine, if you take out, Bishop Gorman and schools of the like from, Nevada, New Nevada could be would be the 51st. It would be ranked 51st. that's how bad in comparison it is. So that's a lot of the issues I'm seeing. People are excited that the Raiders are coming, but they don't want to spend $750 million when
it could be going to something like education.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, especially. So you look at, and I wonder what your perspective is on this. about teams and you know I would guess organizations such as the NFL, the NBA, MLB, NHL when they relocate a team. So what I'm thinking of in particular is you give a city a team. So for example, the Atlanta Flames, right? Mm-hmm. You remove a team from that city because the revenue's not generating enough. There's not enough draw. Not enough people want to go. So the Atlanta Flames then went to Calgary. Then you re-award that city a team, 20, 30 years later. So they have the Atlanta Thrashers. And then you take that team away and award that team to a place that also had a team that was removed in the early 90s in Winnipeg. So, teams that you think about, the LA used to have the LA Rams. Now good St. Louis Rams. Now they're back in LA. You look at the Charlotte Hornets. Then go to New Orleans. New Orleans gets awarded a team, the Charlotte Hornets. I believe went to New Orleans. They become the Pelicans. Then Charlotte gets awarded the Bobcats afterwards. Just your thoughts in general about what does that convey, to you as an avid sports fan and everything like that, where you see leagues basically taking people out, putting them back in, taking them out, putting them back in, so on and so forth.
It to me immediately it tells me that executives and owners and upper management, they're only thinking 5 to 10 years into the future. They're thinking revenue and growth in the short term, how they can make their dollar and sell the team or just move again. I don't think that they have a vested interest in the city that they're moving to. I just feel like they're not thinking long term, and it's only hurting the cities, especially if the teams or the arenas that these teams play in, take taxpayer dollars away from the city.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the Raiders possibly coming, 25 years, 30 years down the line, if the Raiders are still in Las Vegas, I think people will be able to brush the $750 million under the rug like it was nothing. But if
right.
5-10 years from now, if the Raiders aren't here, people are going to be looking at Las Vegas, the NFL, the Raiders, like what the fuck? Like we paid so much to have this team here, and in a few years you took it away.
Right.
So I think a lot of teams are falling into the fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, can't get fooled again.
Can't get fooled again.
And I think the Thrashers / Flames in Atlanta are a great example. I don't think Atlanta is going to be getting a third team anytime soon, if not ever. They tried it there, moved it. Okay, we're going to try it again. Okay, no, it's not working. Moved it. For whatever numerous reasons, hockey isn't working in Atlanta. They got 2 chances. For whatever reason, it wasn't working. Like no matter whose fault it was, dots weren't connected. It wasn't working. So have to move the team. So I don't think that they're going to be getting another team anytime
soon.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and the Rams are next up. If it doesn't if the Rams don't succeed, whether it's winning a championship or butts aren't in seats at the games, or the ownership wants to move the team again. If the Rams leave LA again, I don't see the Rams, or I don't see the Los Angeles area getting another team anytime soon, because tried twice, didn't work out.
Right. I think there's. I mean, obviously there's some like very. I think one of the ones that were more baffling. I mean, obviously during the I'm trying to think of exactly what season. 2005, New Orleans Hornets ended up going to Oklahoma City. because the New Orleans arena was damaged so badly by Katrina. They stay in Oklahoma City for a little while, and then because of the success that they had in Oklahoma City, the Seattle SuperSonics got relocated to Oklahoma City, and basically, was a award for helping the league out in such a trying time, especially during that situation at Katrina. But I think then that huge question comes up, like, why the heck are you moving such a huge market, such as Seattle, to such a smaller market? And obviously there's so many other things that go into it. Like the Supersonics did win an NBA championship in '79. They had a bunch of Western Conference titles. There was the Gary Payton, Sean Kemp era. They had Kevin Durant for a year. Which is so upsetting, and they had a whole decade of basically of struggling. And Seattle had some arena issues and everything like that. They only posted their last year they were 20-62, and Clay Bennett ended up getting the rights to move the teams after settling some legal issues with the city. And obviously, when for a period of time when Vin Baker is your all-star, there's going to be some issues. My cousin, my cousin who's a basketball player, he plays in Panama now, was working out with the Panamanian national basketball team, dunked on Vin Baker. Like, this is issues. These are issues. You can't have that happen. So understandable.
That was the
but
deciding factor. It's like, all right, he got dunked on. We're moving the team. Get him out.
Shut the team down. You heard Vin Baker. Set something away. Like that's like, I feel like if one day we find out that Matt Murray is playing an open hockey somewhere and I score on him, the Pittsburgh Penguins got full.
Yep. Yeah. That's the rule of thumb.
If a Prescott scores on you, it's over. Your whole franchise is gone.
Just pack up, move, start somewhere fresh. Change your name, grow a mustache, do what you got to do. But you can't stay here.
Can't stay here.
Especially.
Speaking of which, did you see Steph Curry got blocked by a high school student?
Oh yeah, in the final seconds on the game-winning three. Yeah. Whatever it was. Yeah, that was. Yeah, Steph Curry. He's gotta go somewhere else now.
That's what happens. That's what happens when you play in hospital shoes, basically. Those go to your room sevens he was wearing all at the end of the last season.
Yeah, the hospice fours. It's
yeah, that was this is a bad look. I mean, I can't think of a person who got roasted more than Steph Curry for bringing those shoes out.
Yeah, it wasn't a gradual, preheat the oven to 450. It was immediate, like Pompeii volcanic fire everywhere.
Pompeii, lava just rolling down the side of the mountain.
And Steph
straight to your house,
just dead. Yeah,
oh my gosh,
he got roasted so quick.
So I think what we've kind of established is the idea. Do you think that obviously you said that it would take a lot for you to disavow a sport, disavow a team. There's so many things that are going on in every sport. You talk about CTE with concussions and football. You talk about everything like that. Do you think that losses, is there a threshold for losses that would just cause you to just say, I'm done, I can't do this anymore, shut it down?
Yeah, and I think because we didn't talk too much about disavowing a sport. We focus mainly on the team aspect. But as I thought about it, I think it would have to be something to that level for me to at least not watch a sport anymore, because there's I cannot I could not watch the Penguins for whatever reason, but I couldn't stop playing hockey.
Yeah.
I could disavow watching a professional sport or a sport on television, but to completely disavow that's like, I don't know, like CTA or CTE, concussions, if they got bad enough, say in the NHL, I could see myself stop stop watching it. Just because like nobody likes to go watch a hockey game or a football game and watch a guy get murdered on the field.
Right.
Have a guy have his arms Frankenstein and he thinks that Nixon's still president. Like it.
Oh no.
Like yeah, he got knocked into some bad times. Um,
Yeah.
like nobody likes to see that. That's why outside of Philadelphia, when a player gets up from an injury, like even the opposing team's fans
Yeah.
cheer.
Clap for it.
Um, so like I could see myself not watching hockey or the NFL if it got bad enough. I don't know what the threshold would be, but
Right.
I would know it when it came.
I think that's kind of how I feel about NASCAR. I feel like I can't even enjoy, like I can't sit down and watch a NASCAR race because there is a part inside me that is just waiting for someone to crash, and that's like an issue. Like that, I feel like this is like it happens so often, I mean, a car crash is a car crash. Like it's especially with like pileups when people's like engines are getting on fire and stuff like that. Like I can't I can't bring myself to watch. Well, first off, I can't bring myself to watch somebody turn right for 500 laps. Like I can't.
It's generally 2,000 turns.
Oh,
It's
oh.
I'm the same way. Yeah, I can't watch NASCAR. Because of that. My grandparents love it. They've watched racing their entire life. But they're not the fans that, oh, I'm just watching it, for the crash. Oh, the crashes are the only good part. And I'm guilty of that. I think a lot of people, they can try to sit on their high horse, but when they put on ESPN or Sports Center and they're doing NASCAR highlights, if they're not showing a crash, you're on your phone and you're changing the channel to something else.
Right. And I think it's also, I mean, like obviously there's sports that are easier to kind of say no to. Like I'm never going to be one to watch bullfighting because I mean, I'll eat the crap out of a porterhouse, but for some reason, me watching someone stab a bull to death is just not something I can do. There's like some kind of guttural reaction to me that's like, this is too much. But I love boxing, and I can watch someone get punched in the face for 12 rounds. Is it just a weird association we have not to be able to tone down those animal instincts in us to like this sort of stuff, but then also to not to draw the line elsewhere with things like bullfighting or rodeo for some people. I don't think it ever is going to get to the point where we're watching murder ball, but who knows?
Yeah, it's definitely something that I can't rule out. Murder ball may happen. Sometime
Wasn't there like taser football? Isn't that a thing? Was that like an Onion article? I feel like that was the thing that I seen.
I feel like that's something that you would find on Not the Onion. Whereas like there's no way that this is real. Oh no, that kid just got tased. Oh, and he fumbled it. Like I feel like somewhere out there, someone's thinking of that, or they're doing it.
UTB, Ultimate Taser Ball, is an extreme sport involving the use of stun devices. The sport's invented under the original name of Ultimate Taser Ball by Leif Kellenberger. That sounds like somebody that you should trust. Eric Prum and Eric with a K, Wunsch, was first played in California. Two teams compete to get a large 24-inch diameter ball into a goal at either end of a 200 by 85-foot field. Players on both teams are armed with stun gun devices. Under rules of the game, players are allowed to use the stun guns on opposing players who are in possession of the ball. The devices are to emit 3 to 5 milliamps, sufficient enough to cause localized muscle spasm, but no permanent injury to any of the body's vital organs.
Yeah, no permanent injury until they get tased, near the boards and somewhere just they go limp and break their neck or something. It's not the taser that I'm necessarily worried about. it's your body falling um, unsupported to the ground. I don't have it pulled up, so I don't know what kind of safety devices or safety equipment that they have on. But even you could throw a football helmet on me, to where I'm not, you know, having my head hit the ground um, completely. But I'm not. No, I'm not gonna do any of that. That's crazy. Whoever does that, that's natural selection at its finest. They
I feel like I don't know if people are familiar with it, but there's I highly suggest that you watch an episode of Upright Citizens Brigade. There's like it's supposed to be like this um, this game in which there it's like it's basically like soccer, but or not soccer. It's like basically like baseball, but there's a gun in the middle of the field that is in a circle that no one's supposed to touch, and it's a really like good play on things. It's basically a sketch comedy. It's where Amy Poehler got really famous. I would really suggest it. I'd definitely have to put that in a link somewhere.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that out myself.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I cannot remember what the name of the game in it, but it's absolutely wonderful. It's a great little skit. So
Yeah.
I think. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, and just thinking about it, um, it's a weird time, especially with um, all this talk about concussions. Like I have no problem watching boxing or UFC. I can. The other day I was watching top 10 bloodiest knockouts in the UFC, and I was watching it no problem. But if I see a guy go helmet to helmet, I'll sit there and go, "Ooh, okay, no, he's dead." But I have no problem watching it in the UFC. I could watch this guy
Yep.
bleed from the head in the UFC. Um, so it's a weird time uh, to be a sports fan and to try to watch all these different sports.
Yeah, I think when you started seeing that string of sports, athletes who were dying because of abuse of drugs and depression. So like you had Junior Seau, you had Derek Bugard, you had Wade Belak, Rick Rigpin, all those people who had passed away. I think it's genuinely hard to ignore those kind of things. But I think
Mhm.
when you are so invested in who with of sports being who you are, that it's tough to pull yourself away from those things because it's just what you've been told for so long, and
Yeah,
um, it's definitely a conundrum in itself, but it's not one I feel like is going to get solved anytime soon.
yeah,
All right, so definitely some great things that we've talked about today. I think that we should. We should maybe leave on a high note, and by a high note I mean a highly depressing note. What is the most crushing sports defeat or event that you had ever seen as a sports fan? Just like something that was like so emotionally draining that because we talked about losses really don't affect following a sports team. What's your crushing sports moment?
two immediately come to mind.
Yes,
Um, well, three, because I can just say every season watching Notre Dame football is crushing.
in its
It's
own
not.
right,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's never really. Oh, did I lose you?
Yo, I'm still here.
Okay, all right. Um, but yeah, two instances really come to mind. One of them involving Notre Dame. It was when Notre Dame went undefeated a few years ago in the regular season and got absolutely slaughtered by Alabama uh, in the championship. Um, Even though I knew it was coming, because every year Notre Dame has one crushing defeat that just carries throughout the season. And going into that game, they hadn't had that defeat yet. So the planets aligned for that to be the game.
Mm.
And
What's your thoughts as it happened?
um, I don't know what I expected, but I was still disappointed.
Oh,
Um,
that's
I fully expected. I think it was 42-14. I fully expected that, and I hate myself for like sitting there and watching it the entire time. But just being a part of that team, being a fan to that team, as shitty as it is sometimes, I couldn't pull myself away to just, all right, I'm done with this. I'm turning it off. I couldn't do it. So like that was,
mm,
it was gut wrenching just sitting there watching my team go through that. Um, because like you really feel for the players, and
right.
you wait all year. Sometimes for me it's been my entire life for this moment, and just to bring that performance, it was gut wrenching. And
I would have figured as a Notre Dame fan, the most gut wrenching would have been finding out about Manti Te'o's girlfriend.
um, no, I mean that was the same season. Um, that was such a weird story to follow, and that was like the whole time, like after the fact, like I could sit here right now, even like watching Catfish. It's like, man, just use Snapchat, like you use Snapchat, and boom, it's that person's face. Because you could see if it was sent from a camera roll, I'd be like, no, that's not your face. That's from I want to see your face right now. So like I don't know how these people, Manti Te'o gets catfish like that. Just
Getting catfish.
use
I don't
yeah.
know how anybody gets catfish. I've watched one or two episodes of that, and somebody like, yeah, I'm in an online relationship with Katy Perry. It's like, bro,
Yeah, it's like no, no, you're not. It's like
you know you're not.
yeah, and like the person's pulling up like like clearly professionally done modeled pictures. It's like no, they're not going to talk to some strange person, from Trenton, New
43 years
Jersey.
old.
Yeah, like it's not going to happen.
Yeah,
Um,
no,
yeah,
nope, 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 nope.
that was a whole weird situation. The other,
Bizarre.
yeah, bizarre for sure. The other one, and luckily it was rectified the next year. Was watching the Pens uh, lose Game 6 to the Red Wings
Yeah,
in 2008. Um,
yep.
because that was, like, growing up, liking hockey, liking the Pens, like you never really fully grasp like how hard it is to get there, and like how much work the team did to get to where they were. And yeah, the Pens won two back in the early 90s, but I was incredibly young. I was an infant at the time. So obviously those cups don't mean really anything, to me as a
Mm,
fan. Um, it was the first time I got to see my team, and completely fathom that they're this close. They're in this series. They're this close to winning it, and to have it, just get dashed in the last few seconds of that game, is it was incredibly depressing. Especially the run that they had. I don't think they lost a game until the third round. I think
oh right, yeah.
they swept the first
The first
two.
two. I think they lost a game to the Flyers that year
Yeah,
in the Eastern Conference Finals.
yeah. I
Yep.
think or it was either they swept the first two, or they were up 3-0 in the second round to like the Rangers, and finally lost, and went it was 3-1, and then they won 4-1. It was something like that,
Right.
where they were playing incredibly great hockey. And at the time, thinking back, like I didn't grasp like how good they were actually playing, and like how close they were. you know
Right.
like I matured into uh the fandom, and looking back, it's like, man, like like it's even more crushing now. Even though they've won 2 cups since, it's even more crushing now because like just watching the highlights and watching everything from that season, it was like, man, like they were that close. Like that was the first time in my life, that I could remember, obviously, that they were that close.
Right. I think for me, there's like so many as a Philadelphia sports fan. It's like literally. I think one of the worst was staying up all night to watch the game one Sixers Lakers, and like AI stepping over Tyronn Lue, and like after watching game one, you're like, we can do it. Like Shaq and Kobe are gonna go down, and then just get like the absolute shit kicked out of us for the next 4 games straight.
Yeah.
Because Dikembe Mutombo couldn't guard Shaq for 4 games straight. Like it was awesome watching that Sixers team, but like everybody knew that nobody was beating the Lakers. Like Phil Jackson was still coaching. Like you had the best center of all time. You have one of the best shooting guards of all time. You have freaking Bob Horry on the team who's just dropping threes. But like that wasn't that bad. I think the most depressing I could think of is like Scott Stevens coming over the middle and hitting Eric Lindros. Because we were up 3-1 in that series. We were going to the championship. We would have beaten the crap out of Dallas that year, in my opinion. And they just watching all of the air get sucked out of the Wells, or it's the Wells Fargo. Oh, it's not even the Wells Fargo Center anymore, is it? Oh, it is the Wells Fargo Center. Mm-hmm. At the time, the Core State Spectrum or the First Union Center, one of those amazing, like, places. Like it's an amazing atmosphere to be in. Watching Flyers games and especially at the playoff scenario. But like seeing that hit happen, everybody was like, "Yeah, it's over. It's so over. It's your number one player." I don't think he was the captain anymore at that time. I think Eric Desjardins might have taken the C at that point, and that was basically what stopped the relationship between Philadelphia and Eric Lindros. I believe the next year he got traded to the Rangers, and like that was it. That was the end of the era. Like that was the end of the Legion of Doom. Yeah, like Legion of Doom era. That was it. That was the end of it. Obviously, the Patrick Kane goal sucked, and I think the Patrick Kane goal was so bad was because that should have been our draft pick.
Yeah.
We ended up getting James Van Riemsdyk instead. But yeah, there's so many that I can think of. I think that I think number one, though, most depressing sports of all time, Apollo Creed getting punched out, Ivan Drago. I cried as a child watching that happen. Just throw the towel in. I don't understand. Stop letting this Russian dude punch Apollo in the face like that.
He's got a family.
On his face. Oh no! How are they gonna do Carl Weathers like that? Oh man, but yeah, I think that fandom is an interesting thing, and I think despite how I should not be emotionally invested in a bunch of people I've never met playing a sport that in the end of it doesn't really matter. But I think that's the uniting part about sports. I think that's the interesting thing about sports as well. Danny, I want to thank you for coming on to this show and discussing things. I wish you all the best in these in your endeavors as we're coming up. I also hope that you will join us again on the show at some point.
Absolutely.
Anything you want to leave us with?
I'm surprised, and this is a little shot at you. I'm surprised you didn't mention, because for me it was a turning point in 2009 when the Pens and Flyers played, and Flyers were up. I think was it game 4? I think it was game 4. The Flyers were up like 3-0, and it was right after Max Talbot gave up.
Oh God damn it!
Yeah. I'm surprised, like knowing me as a Pens fan, that you didn't bring that up when he's like, all right, I got to get in a fight. I'm gonna get my ass kicked, but I'm just gonna shush the shit out of all of Philadelphia, and to have the Penguins come back and win that game, like that was like looking back now and watching it, it's like that was the moment where I was like, they're winning the cup.
Here's my thing though. I think I don't think about that much after Chris Letang tried to do it, and then the next game Claude Giroux had that shift where he hit Crosby like right off the face-off and then scored the goal. Yeah, like immediately. I think more depressing out of that was when Mike Richards hit Evgeny Malkin harder than I've ever seen anyone hit before, and Malkin was leaving, like he was hurt on the play, and he was leaving the zone and trying to get back for a change, and somehow the puck came to center ice, and he was so far behind the play that he was on a breakaway, and he took a slap shot and beat Marty Biron with it. Like that was more depressing, I think.
from like 3 feet in.
Yeah, I was like, what is this nonsense? Like
a slapper from the hash marks.
Oh my god! I every day, like as much as I enjoy the rivalry of the Penguins Flyers, like I wish the Penguins weren't in the same division as the Flyers, because I think that's something that should only happen. Like a Penguins Flyers game should only happen like 2 times a year, because it's so emotionally draining. And then 2,
it really is.
I as I've gotten older, I literally am baffled every time that I watch Sidney Crosby on the ice, because he's so good at what he does, and I want to like him, but I absolutely refuse.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. And that was the difference, I think, this year. Once Sully came on and started coaching the team, you didn't see, especially when Sid plays the Flyers, because the Flyers, they didn't have to play, in the past couple of years, they didn't really have to play much hockey to beat the Penguins. It was like, all right, Hartnell, you're gonna face wash Crosby
Run wild
times, you're gonna give James Neal a couple slashes, and we're gonna win. And it worked. Like the Penguins tried to play the Flyers game, and it didn't work, but it didn't happen this year. Crosby, and even in the Stanley Cup, even in the Stanley Cup, like if you go back and there's like one play where like Joe Thornton just clobbers Crosby in the corner, and
punches him in the head too.
Yeah. And Sid is like just looking at the play. Like if I was Joe Thornton, I would have had an existential crisis. I have never seen somebody be so non-existent to somebody else in my entire life. It was a different kind of player this year, especially the second half of the season.
Absolutely. But all right, I think that's where we'll leave off for tonight. Danny, once again, thank you so much for coming on to the show. I thank all of our listeners for listening to us on the live stream that we're doing right now on YouTube. Obviously, we will post this on SoundCloud. That'll be on my Facebook. That'll be on my Twitter. You can find me at Meet the Prescott. That is MEETTHEPRESCOTT on Twitter. Danny, your Twitter handle
is at Sheer Indanity. So, at SHEERINDANITY.
Yeah, Danny's got some awesome stuff on there every once in a while. Just tweets what he's feeling. Man holds nothing back, especially during Notre Dame football.
Yeah,
it's a fantastic thing to watch. Yeah.
Only follow me if you want my shitty live tweets of all the Notre Dame football or Pittsburgh Penguins games. Other than that, it's random stuff or movie quotes.
Yeah, and you know what? Can't get enough of it. All right, so I thank you so much, and we will be back next week. When that gets closer, you can look on the Twitter to figure out what the quotes are, or not the quotes, excuse me, who the guests might be and all those kind of things. And thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.